We all have those coasters that we ride and just can't understand why they don't get more attention. These are the ones that make people hate you because you claim they're good and other people just can't respect that. Then they're the ones that we can't understand the hype, the complete opposite. I know that tier lists are kinda dead now, but I don't really care because I thought it'd be a fun video to make. I know that I'm probably gonna trigger everyone watching this at least once, but please just remember that this is just my opinion. Perhaps if I wrote it on a different day, I would think something different. Starting off, we have Pepsi Orange Drake. I'm gonna put that in the properly rated category because I mean it's just a family coaster. It has nice views, but I mean it's not that much. Rock Bottom Plunge is slightly overrated. I found it to be kind of rough, and it was a really short ride, and people act like it's really good, but in my opinion, it's just okay. Fairly Odd Coaster, probably just properly rated. I mean, it's just another family spinning coaster, so I mean, you know what to expect. Avatar Airbender, I mean, probably properly rated. No one really talks about it because it's just an okay coaster. I mean, it's just kind of repetitive, but I mean, it's some good fun. Superman Ultimate Flight, that is a slightly overrated. No, that's an overrated ride. I didn't really enjoy it. I thought it was really rattly, and it just didn't have a good layout. It was really forestless except for the pretzel loop. Goliath, that's gonna go in the underrated or slightly underrated. I'm gonna go underrated because everyone acts like it's. They say it's the worst RMC, but it's even if it's the worst RMC, it's still really good because it's an RMC. X Flight, uh, no one really recognizes it as very good because I mean it's just okay in my opinion. Or the restraints were the worst part of it because it just kept tightening throughout the ride, and by the end of the brake run, I couldn't really breathe. American Eagle, that is an underrated ride. It's not even that rough except for the final helix, and like the final helix is so rough that's just fun. Plus, it has really good airtime, especially coming out of that helix. The middle helix, double helix. Max Force is also going to go in the underrated category. It's the best launch I've experienced, and that dog tongue element is the single greatest element that I've experienced. Viper is gonna go in the overrated category. I mean, I thought it was just okay. The only thing it had some decent airtime, but other than that, it was kind of just a little bit rough and slow. I thought it was kind of boring. And yeah, Raging Bull. This is gonna be between underrated and slightly underrated. I think people are finally realizing that's actually a really fun ride, so I'm going to put in slightly underrated. I mean, the twister layout is really unique. It's not something that you find everywhere. American Thunder. That's going to go in the underrated category. No one really talks about it. I mean, it's the second best wooden coaster ever, and right behind Goliath. It has some amazing airtime, and it's just a lot of fun. Plus, it's pretty smooth. Mr. Freeze is going to be slightly underrated because it is the most intense coaster that I've been on, and the launch I was really not expecting. Looking like on video, I thought the launch was just gonna be kind of weak, kind of like Joker's Jinx. But no, it is powerful. The boss is also gonna be slightly underrated because some people think it, like me, think it's really good, but other people think that's really bad. So it's kind of in the middle there. Like, I didn't think it was rough, and the only place I rode it was the back row, and it just felt like I was falling off the face of the earth on some of those drops. I thought it was great. Boomerangs are underrated. Alright, well, boomerangs, I think that they're really underrated rides. They're not even that rough, and they're just so intense. Like, they reach 5 Gs. I don't know why everyone frowns upon them. I mean, who cares that it's a cloned ride if it's a good ride? River King Mine Train. Slightly underrated. I think it's the second best mine train I've ridden. I rode in the back row, so that's where you always gotta ride a mine train, because then it can be actually relatively intense. Alright, Pandemonium. Pandemonium is probably gonna go in the slightly underrated category, because no one really talks about these rides, but I actually think that they have really good airtime, mostly because of the restraints that they have. I think it's an above average spinning coaster, and it was just a really enjoyable ride, really smooth too. Ninja. Ninja is definitely underrated. Why do people complain about this thing? I mean, it's not even rough. I didn't bang my head once on it, and it's the only coaster I've ever blacked out on. Batman the Ride. It's probably slightly overrated. I mean, they're decent rides, but I actually didn't think that it was very intense. That's the Batman ride, St. Louis, if you're wondering. And yeah, it was also kind of headbangy, but I mean, it's decent, but not as good as everyone says. Blue Streak is going to be slightly underrated. This was the first coaster that I ever experienced airtime on, because I remember I was a GP when I went to Cedar Point, and I didn't want to like get stapled and have it be painful, so I left the restraint up a little bit, and I actually got some really good airtime. I also happened to be sitting on a non-wheel seat too. Magnum is overrated. Yep, there we go. I mean, it has great airtime, yes, it does, but other than that, the ride doesn't really have anything. Wicked Twister, that is gonna be properly rated, I would say. I mean, it's one of the worst coasters at Cedar Point, but I mean, it's still a good ride. It has a decent launch, but it gets repetitive. Gatekeeper is an underrated, slightly underrated ride. I'm saying that because, yeah, it's so majestic, and it's the perfect ride to have a front entrance to the park. The near misses are great, and it's just a lot of fun. Raptor is overrated. I thought it was a headbanger. It wasn't fun. I mean, it wasn't even intense. I could see it has a good layout, but other than that, it's just not good. Valraven is definitely underrated. It's probably the most fun coaster I've been on because it's so smooth, it's so fast, and it doesn't bring intensity, but it brings everything else. Iron Dragon is an underrated ride, especially in the back row. You get a lot of whip going around those turns. Corkscrew is an overrated ride. People say that's good. I don't see how you could think that. It's not. I mean, it has a terrible layout and it's rough. I mean, but I do respect what it did for the industry. Uguru, I'm gonna say, is a slightly underrated ride. Blending Force is the definition of underrated. Why do people say that this thing is forceless? I do not get it. It has incredible positive and negative G-forces, and it's just so fast, which is my favorite part of roller coasters. Maverick, I might get some flack for this, but I'm gonna have to say that's overrated. The restraints kept digging into my shoulders the entire time, and I just thought it was really uncomfortable. Steel Vengeance, slightly underrated, because a lot of people recognize it as the best coaster in the world, like it is, and it's not even close. But some people say it's like not even top 15, and I don't see how you could say that. It has everything that you could ever want in a roller coaster. Cedar Creek Mine Ride is properly rated. I mean, it's just another mine ride. It's probably one of the worst ones. It's kind of short and jolty. I just thought it was okay. Top Thrill Dragster is, I'm gonna say, slightly underrated. Because, yes, it's a short ride, but that launch, it's just so powerful, and it's one of the greatest night rides on Earth. These are all our coasters I have ridden before. If you're wondering, I purposely made it so that all of them I have ridden. Gemini is going to be slightly underrated. I think people are finally realizing that's actually a really great ride. And yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's just a fun old school ride, and I hope they never remove it. Unless they can put something really good in its place, then I won't really mind. Harry Potter and the Escape from Gringotts, I'm going to say is properly rated. I'm a massive Harry Potter fan, but I mean, the ride experience, it's just alright. It's more of a dark ride than a coaster. Hollywood Rip Ride Rocket, I think, is slightly underrated. People act like it's really bad and really rough. I didn't think it was rough at all. I actually thought it was really smooth. Why do I keep saying really? Whatever. And yeah, the song aspect of it is pretty interesting and unique, and it's just a fun ride in my opinion. Incredible Hulk is definitely underrated. Why does no one talk about this thing? It's one of the most intense coasters on Earth. The launch is just incredible going into that whatever that inversion is called, and I just can't. I don't have enough things to say about it. It's just amazing. Dueling. Oh, I put Dueling Dragons on here twice, but whatever. I think Dueling Dragons was kind of overrated because yes, it was intense, but I don't know. It just was missing something for me. Play the Hippogriff, it's a properly rated ride. Everyone knows that it's amazingly themed, but the ride experience isn't that great. Expedition Everest is underrated. It's one of the most visually impressive things that you'll ever see in your life if you go to Animal Kingdom. It's just amazing. Plus, when I was there, the Yeti was working every single time I rode it, so I mean, it's awesome. Barnstormer is properly rated. It's just a little family coaster. It's kind of fun, but it's just family coaster, like I said, but it has good theming. Seven Dwarfs Mine Train is slightly underrated. I'm putting everything in the slightly underrated category. Whatever. With Seven Dwarfs Mine Train, it's a pretty fun ride. I mean, it's just a little family coaster, but for a family coaster, it's themed amazingly, and there's some pretty nice moments in there. Big Thunder Mountain Railroad is definitely underrated. Like Expedition Everest, it's so visually impressive, the scenery is amazing, it's just a fun ride, even if it's not intense, it's not supposed to be intense. Space Mountain is definitely overrated. It doesn't really do anything, it's in the dark so you can't see anything, unlike Big Thunder Mountain Railroad or Expedition Everest, so it's not very good. Twist and Shout, I would say, is overrated because when people are talking about the worst coasters in the world, usually Twist and Shout doesn't come up, so that's exactly why it's overrated. Swamp Fox is definitely underrated. It has standing airtime. It's a little bit rough around the edges, but I mean, standing airtime, what can you say? Batwing is definitely underrated. People act like Vekoma Flying Dutchmans are bad, mainly because of Nighthawk, but this one's actually a really amazing ride. It's so intense, and that flying aspect is it's just a fun ride. Superman Ride of Steel is also an underrated ride. It doesn't look good on paper, I will admit that, but when you actually ride it, you understand what it's supposed to do, and one of the best night rides on earth, like Top Thrill Dragster. Joker's Jinx is gonna be, I'd say it's properly rated. It's a fun ride. It's pretty intense, and the launch it's a fun launch, but I mean, it's nothing special. Firebird is terrible, it's awful, and some people think it's good, so I'm gonna put it in the slightly overrated category. The headbanging is terrible. I mean, it's just so bad that I can't even put the ride into words. Roar, I would say, is definitely underrated. People act like it's such a bad ride, but I mean, it's really not. In the front, it's not rough at all, and on some days it has really good airtime, and it always has amazing laterals. Vekoma SLCs, I think, are also underrated. I know I probably seem biased because I'm putting everything in my home park in underrated, but I mean, whatever. Vekoma SLCs, if you keep your head forward and ride in the front, it's actually a really fun ride because there's some great near miss effects, and the restraints are so soft that it just feels like you're bashing your head on a pillow. Raging Cajun is the most intense, well, one of the best wild mice out there, in my opinion, because it spins so fast, but somehow it's not like a spinning that makes you sick. Because I get sick on a lot of flat rides, but Raging Cajun, it doesn't make me sick for some reason. Wild one, I would say, it's either slightly overrated or properly rated. I'm gonna say properly rated. It has really good airtime, and that final helix it's an amazing element. The laterals are so strong on it, but the restraints kind of kill the ride a little bit for me. Wild Mouse at Hershey Park is probably rated. I mean, it's just a wild mouse. Wildcat is probably slightly underrated. It's really not that rough, but it doesn't really do anything. It just kind of meanders around a little bit. But I mean, people claim that's rough, and it's not. Trailblazer, I think, is properly rated. Most people recognize it as one of the best mine trains in the world, so yeah. Stormrunner is also properly rated, and so Super Duper Looper. Laugh Track, I think, is slightly overrated, mainly because it doesn't have any audio effects. Great Bear, I think, is a really underrated ride. It's the smoothest ride I've ever been on, and it's so intense. Plus, just the way it weaves in and out of Skyrush is amazing. Lightning Racer is slightly underrated. It's really smooth, it's not rough at all, but I mean, it doesn't really do that much, but people act like it's one of the worst GCIs, and I wouldn't say so. Fahrenheit, I think, is also slightly underrated, because inversions are some of the best inversions in the world, but I mean, other than that, it doesn't really bring that much. Comet is the last coaster in this video, and I'm going to put it in slightly underrated because it has buzz bar restraints, and I think not a lot of people know that, so it does have really good airtime. Anyway, that's going to cap off the video. Remember to leave your thoughts, suggestions, and video ideas in the comments below, and I'll catch you guys later.